Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Ecclesiastes
With Brady Randall.
Yesterday, we looked at the beginning of Ecclesiastes 3, where we saw how God has made everything in its due season. There is a time for everything, and today I want to look at verse 11. Here's what we read. He, speaking of God, has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart, yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. The word for eternity there in Hebrew is olam, which can mean darkness or ignorance, the future, or eternity as it's often translated. And looking at Ecclesiastes as a whole, including in this very chapter in its context, it seems best to see the correct translation as eternity. So God has made every season and everything beautiful in its time, but He has also set eternity in the human heart. In other words, God has given every human the sense that there's got to be something more, whether or not we realize it or not. I am absolutely fascinated by the size of the universe. I don't think any one of us can truly grasp the enormity of the observable or the unobservable universe. The billions of galaxies and stars. In fact, the known universe or the observable universe is something like 92 light years in diameter. And scientists have concluded that the unknown universe is at least 250 times this big, or 7 trillion light years across. But let's be honest. We really have no idea. It is unfathomable, the size and the scope of the universe. And even ardent atheists marvel at the size and the scope and the detail of the universe. It is so big. And how did it come to be? Most scientists admit that the universe had a beginning, most likely caused by a very big bang. But then that leads to the question, well, what caused the bang? There has to be something more. Well, in this passage, we read that God has set eternity in our hearts. Or just consider the incredible creatures that we see in the land and the sea. I think about this every time I go to the zoo, every time I'm watching a YouTube video. To see an elephant with such a long trunk, or giraffes with their long necks, the craziest creatures of the sea. And when I just see these creatures, I marvel. There has to be something or someone beyond them. And that makes sense if God has set eternity in our hearts. Just consider birth and death. The birth of a child is so miraculous. If you've ever had the privilege of holding a newborn in your arms, it is hard not to be overwhelmed with the magnitude of this new life. And there's something in that moment in all of us, in that just screams in our hearts, this child came from somewhere or someone with a purpose. There's got to be more. And we're reminded again that God has set eternity in our hearts. Similarly, the opposite of birth is death. And just consider the death of a recent loved one, or maybe a funeral that you've attended. In the ache and the sting of that death, something in our hearts says, this is not fair. This cannot be the end. Here today and gone tomorrow, we are reminded that this life is so uncertain. It is so fleeting, but it's just a drop in the bucket compared to eternity, which God has placed in all of our hearts. Even the very best moments in life leave us wanting something more. Even the very best moments cannot truly satisfy. And I believe that C.S. Lewis, the author, said it best. He said, if I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. If none of my earthly pleasures satisfy it, then does not that prove that the universe is fraud? Probably earthly pleasures were never meant to satisfy it, but only to arouse it, to suggest the real thing. The books or the music in which we thought the beauty was located will betray us if we trust to them, for it was not in them, it only came through them. And what came through them was longing. These things, the beauty, the memory of our own past, are good images of what we really desire. But if they are mistaken for the thing itself, they turn into dumb idols, breaking the hearts of their worshipers. For they are not the thing itself. They are only the scent of a flower we have not found, the echo of a tune we have not heard, news from a faraway country we have not yet visited. And I just think again to myself, this can't be all that there is. Even our worst moments in life remind us this can't be it. The world is so big, and yet it cannot fully satisfy. And so I want to encourage you to lean into this experience rather than running away from it. The very reason that God put this on the human heart was so that you and I would seek beyond ourselves and seek the God who was and is to come for all eternity. For if you seek him with all of your heart, you will find him. And I pray that you truly experience that he is the only one who can fully satisfy.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.